It's the SKOR North Twins Show. Baseball!
All right, SKOR North Twins Show. We are back. Declan Goff here. Just got back from Target Field, where the Twins just formally introduced Derek Shelton as their next manager of the Minnesota Twins. So let's talk about it. Hit the like button and subscribe button here on the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube channel. New era of Twins baseball. It was formally introduced today. I have some key takeaways from that press conference after speaking with Derek Shelton and hearing from Derek Falvey as well. Just some details I'd like to share with you guys here on the SKOR North Twins Show. So as we enter this new era, and if you're looking for Minnesota Twins content, or maybe like you're a Derek Shelton fan or you're a Pittsburgh Pirates fan that like Derek Shelton and you've now become a Twins fan, that'd be a very strange switcheroo there. But if you are someone that likes this type of content, the like and the subscribe button goes a long way to continue to support this show. Okay, key takeaways. I have a whole notes section in my phone just chock full of info and things that I wrote down from quotes and from takeaways. So first and foremost, we'll kind of go like in chronological order of what was said, what was answered, what was asked. I found it not surprising, but very hilarious, fitting that the first person everyone thanked was Joe Pohlad and the Twins ownership family for allowing them to be guided through this process. And Derek Shelton brings three core values, to the Twins that the Twins brass enjoyed and liked. Experience, the core values that they also talked about of him being a lifer in baseball, and familiarity with the organization. I think one of my first big takeaways is, number one, this guy is a great orator. He's a really good speaker, kind of commands a room. If you weren't aware, he was working for Sirius XM radio after he got let go from the Pirates this season. And he even shouted out the entire Sirius XM station at his opening answer, because that, ironically, is what kind of made him fall back in love with baseball after being axed from the Pirates and obviously being frustrated from being fired. Like, he understood that why and the timing of when he was fired. It certainly wasn't a surprise to him. But I've been laid off before. Anytime you lose a job, there's natural human emotion that goes through. That's bitterness. But if it wasn't for his role with SiriusXM, with Judd Zulgad, we'll talk extensively about. He personally went up to Derek Shelton. I witnessed this. Judd went up to Derek Shelton and said how much he loved the Loud Outs program that he was on. But Derek talked about that it brought his passion back for the game of baseball, and it brought his passion back for maybe getting back into baseball. So I thought that was very interesting. I think that will make, just selfishly and from this show standpoint, I think that makes obviously my job a hell of a lot easier, because you have a manager that gets how the media works and understands the questions and the answers that have to be held, and that's very important, I guess, to me, which I'm excited to learn more about Derek. He's a very personal guy. We're actually, if all things go well, we actually might have him on the show here in the next couple weeks. Can't promise that, but planted some seeds there, so be on the lookout for that. He might be able to join us on a full edition of the SKOR North Twins Show later on. But a few things that he brought up. The attention to detail and fundamentals are extremely important, and it goes back to the similarities and the things he learned from when he was hired under Paul Molitor. I think people, and I brought this up a few weeks ago or on a recent show, that I think people forget that Shelton was not hired by Rocco. He was hired by Paul Molitor and was his bench coach, and then retained by Rocco, which is Rocco and Derek Shelton had ties from Tampa Bay. But I would say it's pretty surprising to have a bench coach retained from a different manager to a new manager. Like that's rare. But he was with Paul Molitor in 2018 for that whole spring training, and he talked about, number one, how not intimidated he was by Paul Molitor, but how much he was nervous about making a mistake under, the management of one of the best players of all time and a Hall of Famer in Paul Molitor. But Derek Shelton kept bringing up the details about the fundamentals and the little attention to detail that are so extreme We saw it play out in Game 7 and throughout the World Series even, that the smallest little things, the not getting the extra lead, not paying attention on certain things are the minuscule things that prevent you from literally winning a championship. Again, it was a great World Series. But those things, it sounds like from what Derek either observed from watching Twins baseball or throughout the interview process, that he wants this team to get back to those principles and those fundamentals. And even at spring training in 2026 here in about 3 months, that's something that he wants to be back installed. When he was with Mulder, he noticed those things that he wants to make sure that the Twins don't forget. So I am curious. Rocco talked about that last year with Matt Borgschulte, that they changed up their approach to spring training. Every manager is going to have a different approach, so it's not surprising to hear Derek Shelton say that's the things he wants to do. But he is excited for that. And look, he was asked about, I think maybe the elephant in the room here, morale on this team is incredibly low. The fan interest with the team is incredibly low. You guys, the SKOR North Twins Show YouTube audience, still love this show, so thank you so much for supporting it. But it's I'm not completely unaware that the morale for the Minnesota Twins is about as low as it's gotten, as low as it's been that I can ever remember. And even though there's not like a quick fix, one size fit all solution, he said if we start going back to the things that made the Twins special, which is fundamentals baseball and winning baseball, and winning, of course, takes care of everything, that fans will appreciate that. And he does face an uphill climb. He can say these things, he can preach all this stuff. It's gonna take way more than that, obviously, to get Minnesota sports fans to buy back into this team. I do see some comments here on the YouTube channel. Yeah, shoot me any comments you have about the presser or about kind of the future of the team. We'll gladly try to answer as many as I can here on the SKOR North Twins Show. So attention to detail was big there. I asked him about his coaching staff because he went on it's the new podcast with former GM Thad Levine. I listened actually to it this morning. Roster to Rings with Ryan McDonough and Thad Levine. And Derek Shelton was on there, I don't know, about a month ago, and he discussed from when he was in Pittsburgh that the thing he kind of regrets, and if he gets another chance to manage again, that when he got that job in Pittsburgh, it was going to be an uphill battle an uphill battle, but a challenge with younger players that are minor league experience heavy and young players that have never been in the big leagues, that we should surround them with coaches and people that have had experience in the minor leagues. And looking back on it, he kind of believes I probably made a mistake there, and where I'd like things to be different is if I get another job, I want people on the staff that have major league experience, whether that's coaches, whether that's recent players. He wants to surround his current players with people that have played the game and have experience playing the game. I know that's a crazy concept, but in the world of information analytics, which he touched on, I can talk about in a little bit, that gets forgotten about and lost. And I think it is a big problem with why you can blame younger generations, and this isn't a sports and baseball thing, you can blame younger generations for not heeding the advice of their elders. But at the end of the day, I think you need to surround your players with the best type of people that have had success in it. Baseball's really hard, and you can have people that have all the information. It's just how do you decipher it and how do you explain it, and how do you also support young players and support people looking for advice. That's what I heard from a core of Twins players throughout the end of 2025 was we want guidance and help, and if we don't feel heard or we're not getting the necessary teaching that we want. And I think that played a big part in maybe the demise and potentially the demise of maybe Rocco Baldelli, but also the stalling out of young Twins hitters that did not flourish. And Derek really seems, and again, this could be complete propaganda, guys. I am solely relaying what was told to me with my own opinion on stuff too, but he seems pretty keen on the fact of explaining those details and surrounding his players and coaching staff with the right people to get that information more clear. And it still might not work, but I also think I was impressed and taken away from that fact of he wants to make sure that that's going to be a good thing. But he also, when I asked him about back to the coaching thing, that yes, he wants to surround people that have major league experience. So does that mean, like, I know Troy Hawkins, former Twins reliever and MLB vet, is he your favorite to be the pitching coach? Maybe. I'm not sure, but I would bet we're going to see some new people in the assistant coaching roles and certain position roles that have major league experience. And there might be some people from Rocco's staff that are retained, but I would bet you're going to see likely a new bench coach, which is normal. That's going to be likely handpicked by the manager. I think you're going to see a new hitting coach, and the pitching coach side, I don't know, but it feels like if he's preaching what he's discussing here, I think a new bench coach, so Jace Tingler, Matt Borgschulte, I guess I'd be surprised, maybe I'm wrong though, if they are retained as the bench and hitting coach who are under Rocco Baldelli during his staff here. I'll take some of the questions here on the SKOR North YouTube channel. Let's start with this one from Alex. Any updates from Falvey on when the minority owners will be announced and what their roles will be? Alex, which is Alex Smith. I'm guessing it's not the former NFL quarterback. No news on that yet. And even Derek, I got the sense, number one, I know Derek's frustrated by being asked about this over and over again without an answer, without a solution. So I kind of do empathize with him. But it also even sounds like Derek is annoyed too that this process is taking longer. I don't mean to completely put words in his mouth, but he wants resolution, and it's even, getting this approval from Major League Baseball is above his head, So no, to answer your question, Alex, no news on the minority owners, but I think once that is approved, we'll have probably a more formal idea of what that payroll looks like. Colin here, any indication on how long Shelton's contract is for? With the Angels only giving a 1-year deal, it felt like the length of a contract is a bigger deal than ever. Was not discussed, and the reason I honestly, Colin, I didn't even ask about it. I maybe could have asked a little bit behind the scenes more, but they won't discuss it. Like, they won't even tell you off the record the idea of that. So with an impending lockout, to your question, and just like with Suzuki's deal, it could be a 1-year thing. But this is an organization that also likes stability, so I think handing out a 1-year contract maybe doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Zach says, what would you consider a successful first step for Shelton and the Twins as a whole? Morale boost, personnel move, something different? Zach, it's I'm just not throwing it out there. Great question, and I think something that maybe we can explore on a longer form episode of the SKOR North Twins Show. I think the first thing that comes to mind, and I'll likely repeat it again on that full episode, is just getting your star players and you getting the players that you have drafted and cultivated and developed and called up here to buy into what you're doing and to give them a solution on what are the next steps. So I guess that kind of goes into both morale, but also development. You have to embrace and you have to figure out if guys like Royce Lewis and Brooks Lee and Matt Wallner are a part of your future, and are you listening to them? Are you setting them up for success? Can you make sure you're doing that successfully? I think that's at least one thing to me that comes to mind. A few other things from the press conference. You can hit the like button and subscribe button too on the SKOR North Twins Show. When asked about what he likes about this current Twins team, he said the strength of the starting pitching, Byron Buxton, and its farm system. And look, the Twins do have a very excellent farm system. Most outlets do have them graded as one of the best projected going into 2026, but a farm system, two things doesn't mean diddly squat if, number one, well, they are lottery tickets, but two, if you haven't developed them successfully, you can't really guarantee on them having a lot of success. I think it's better to have a better farm system than a worse farm system. But he was very excited about that. And when I want to make sure I have this, this quote here. When asked about which players the word assurance was used, are going to be on the roster, because there's trade rumors all over on this team, okay? From Pablo to Joe Ryan, anyone after stripping down 10 players at the deadline, I think it's safe to assume anyone could be on the table. No trade clauses or no trade clauses. The quote that Derek Shelton gave was, "The assurance of who is here was made to him." So there was not a formal confirmation that you can expect Pablo Lopez. In fact, they teased him. Some writers teased him. Are you willing to secure and say on the record that Pablo Lopez is your opening day starter next year? And he just gave a big laugh. The assurance of who is here was made to him, and I remember I just wrote that down because. Yeah, I'm curious too on the payroll and the direction of this team. What does that exactly mean? Probably we don't know yet. But Pablo and Joe Ryan trade rumors are likely to be swirling all over the place until like it's very much shut down. And look, Derek Falvey, that's going to trip me up so much, by the way, over the next foreseeable future. Derek Falvey, Derek Shelton, Derek. I have to go with Falvey and just Shelton. Derek Falvey discussed that. Look, he wouldn't be doing his job if he wasn't getting the phone calls and taking the phone calls and listening to offers for all of his players. That's part of the position he is in. But yeah, if I were betting, I guess, as I'm thinking out loud here, if Pablo and Joe were still on the team, if you were to, make a decision right now, I think one of them is. I don't think the other one is. I think only one of them are. But if both of them are intact, if both of them are still here in the opening day rotation, yeah, it's a good spot to be. I mean, say what you want about this team. If Pablo and Joe Ryan are on it and healthy, that's about as solid of a 1-2 punch you can have in a starting rotation. And I think that's why Derek Shelton was a little bullish. Now, the rest of the offense and a bullpen that you have to completely essentially rebuild, good luck with that. But those are two starting points for Derek Shelton on this too. When asked about the details and stuff, he details with talking to players. He said he has communicated with players on the team, and he has talked to Byron Buxton. He has talked to Pablo. He's going to start making the rounds and formally meeting, with players. Said I think he has spoken on the phone with, a certain other group of former players or current players too on the Twins. But that's something that he's going to start doing now. When asked if he's in a rebuild, this is a classic one. And I'm not picking on Derek here, but he doesn't believe they're in a rebuild. They're in a developing stage, which if you can just compare apples to apples, that is a rebuild. I know what he's saying, that if you're calling up a bunch of different prospects and enough different players and you're going younger, that's something you want. You are in a developing stage. And it does sound like they want to continue to be athletic and run the bases, and be aggressive like they were in the last 6 weeks of the season. We like to get caught up in team identity in Major League Baseball. What is your team's identity? Is it hitting the home run? Is it strong pitching? Is it defense? Obviously, you kind of have to marry all those three things if you want to contend for a World Series. But it does feel like athletic and attention to detail feel like, to use the word core principles, which I've heard a lot lately, those feel like core principles. Those feel like identity traits that the Twins want to employ and embody on the field in 2026. Those are two things that they want to be athletic. They want to be detail-oriented. Now, again, is that enough to be a playoff team or a threat to win a World Series? Probably not yet. I don't think we can make that assumption, nor should we make the assumption. But yeah, that was something else that stood out. And then I really like this one, and I kind of touched on it earlier, but he said we can't overload our players with information, and the failure component is important. So when a big league hitter is failing or is just being bombarded with the process, not marrying up with the results, how do you marry those two things together? And also, when do you have to have that first conversation? And Derek also touched on, when do you have to have it again? It's one thing to have the conversation of you should probably be looking at this, and then as you watch and as you're learning, when do I have to have that second conversation with you about these struggles or about this problem you're going through? And I think, again, that's where the attention to detail and process stuff I am very curious on, and I'm just buying a ketchup popsicle and I'm being sold it, but I think that stuff is important, and I don't think that Derek Shelton is BSing me or BSing anyone when he wants those things to be better. Now, is he set up in a tough situation with an ownership group that might be stripping payroll down, might be taking away better players on the current roster? Yeah. that makes it pretty damn hard to win games. So he's going to obviously try his absolute best there, but those are parts of the things that I think he wants to really, really embody with the Twins. He also talked about how when he got the job in Pittsburgh, he thought he was ready to be a manager. I'll actually make a comparison here. He thought he was ready, but in reality, he certainly was not. It didn't help that the pandemic hit and it wiped out, 2/3 of a baseball season, but he really was not ready yet. He feels so much more prepared this time around. And again, like there's only 30 of these jobs. He wanted to manage again, so I would hope that, naturally he feels more prepared and that he wants to try this again. And it's not out of the ordinary for good managers to go to a place and fail and then be better for it. That's something that is totally possible. But I have a hard time, pending the moves that are going to be taking place this offseason, really buying into that the Twins are going to be a threat. I think best case scenario is that they are competing for the final wild card spot. But I do want to see this attention to detail. I want to learn more about this, see that play out. Again, it might not mean that they're winning a ton of games or winning a lot of games, but are they smarter? I do think the Twins were kind of a dumb team over the last year and a half, whether it's just not just the lack of speed because they had bigger guys, just not taking the extra bag, not moving when they should be, making boneheaded defensive decisions, putting themselves in a weird spot where they have a Gold Glove center fielder. They've had now 2 Gold Glove first basemen. Ty France just won the Gold Glove. I know he spent half the year here and then half the year in Toronto, but they had Carlos Santana in 2024. They had Ty France this year. They had Byron Buxton in center field, who plays Gold Glove caliber defense. Carlos Correa's defense eroded, but still, like on paper, should be good. Harrison Bader was excellent in left field. And yet, all of that, the Twins were one of the worst defensive teams in baseball last year in terms of defensive runs saved. So, can they get back to those basics and just play smarter baseball? Cleveland might not ever win a World Series, but they stay competitive by doing a lot of those things. And I wonder if some of those things that a small market and small ball team can do is embrace those things. Trevor Plouffe has talked about on our podcast that if you're going to be cheaper, you can buy defense and you can buy that run prevention. Those are things that are obtainable. If you want slugging, if you want home runs, going to cost you top dollar. But can you find some defensive prowess and can you find some speed? Absolutely. That's usually always available. So let's see. I think, is that everything I kind of have written down here? I think that's a good starting point from just the takeaways. I know Mackie and Judd, and actually myself, I believe, we'll have a full episode, I believe, on Friday, talking more about these things and maybe even what do we now want to see the Twins be good at going forward, and what do we want to see them under Derek Shelton they weren't doing before. So yeah, we'll talk about all that sorts of stuff. Appreciate you guys, though, here on the SKOR North Twins Show. We'll also be pumping out plenty of off-season content, plenty of great things ahead. I know there are some darker days. Might feels like it's a morale lowest point. I completely agree and empathize with Twins fans, but the content here doesn't stop. Still love doing this show. So SKOR North Twins Show. My name's Declan Goff. Appreciate you guys, and we'll be talking soon.